Good afternoon, Chair Baldroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Executive Management Team meeting for Wednesday, June 10th. I'll now convene the meeting, and we have a special guest today, our Public Records Program team. And so we're looking forward to that update this morning, and welcome to all of you. So Samina Mays is here, our Public Records Manager. And Samina, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce your team here and then just take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. This is exciting to be able to share what our program does and just update you on things other than public records requests that are important to public records requests. So I think that'll be hopefully enlightening to everybody. So I'm joined with Victoria Owen. She'll be presenting with me, and I have over here Amber Anderson, who is a public records coordinator, Ashley Cooey. I don't think I've ever said your last name out loud.
There's a lot of vowels.
Yeah.
I can guess as to how it's pronounced, but that's right. Yeah.
Also public records coordinator. She also does a lot of our bank requests. So she has a good relationship with our banks. And so, yeah, any more information on that, I'm sure she'd be happy to share after. And then we have Erica Courtois.
Even more vowels.
Yeah, that's fancy. That's fancy. And Erica joined us to kind of take on our public records searching, because as everybody knows, that's become one of the most complicated things in our environment. So she's been awesome, awesome addition, techie support. Yes, everybody's great. And then I don't know if we have anybody else online, but then we're missing Missy Norton, who's our records coordinator. She also helps with public records requests, but primarily heads up our records management and retention. And then Arnett, who's also a public records coordinator, who is out of the office today. So.
Well, great. And thank you. Just before you get started, just to, again, thank you for being here. It's such an important topic, when you work in government. And so the work that you guys do is important, and we value that. And I hope that others around the table today can learn as much as I hope that board members learn today. So do you want to take questions along the way, or how would you like? So if I see a board member's hand raised, I can interrupt and have them ask their question. Okay,
yeah,
that's how we'll plan on doing it. All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, let's get started. I know how to do this. Did you just click? Oh, easy. Okay, so a little introduction, just a few bullet points about why it's important to have a good, solid public records program. So just some things to highlight here. As everyone knows, public records compliance is a legal obligation under RCW 4256, and we call that the Public Records Act. Non-compliance can result in lawsuits, penalties, attorney's fees, and reputational harm. Delays and inconsistent practices create operational and legal risk, and leadership does set the tone for prioritization, responsiveness, and accountability. So this is what we're going to be discussing in today's presentation. We have some information on our request trends, program performance, some high-risk areas that I would like to note, recent court decisions, projects that our program is working on, and executive priorities that I would like you all to take away. All right, let's start with request trends. So this data is just from going back, just to give you a little snapshot, going back May 21st, 2025, and that's when we implemented our new GovQA public records tracking system to May 21st of 2026. So just to kind of give you a little snippet of the requests that we do in our key metrics. Requests received during this time period were 1,362. Of those 1,362 requests, 1,163 were closed. So not bad. Open requests, so at any given time, you could just take any day, and this is always what our average is usually like. We have about 230 open at any given time. So that happens because, we'll close a few, then 4 more will come in that day. So it's just that's just how it works. The average days that it takes us to close a request is 33, which is actually really good.
Samina, I have a quick question. How long have you been in your position?
This position here or?
Well,
public
let me
records?
ask my question, because
Okay.
I was trying to, so how does that compare to previous year's trend? So we're at 33 days.
Mhm.
Are we about the same as we've always been? Have we closed that gap a little
Closing
bit?
them
or-
quicker. We are
Okay.
closing them quicker here. We do have JLARC reporting metrics that we report. It's like 18 metrics, that we're required by the legislator to report. And so if you are interested in that information, I do have it, but we are closing requests a lot quicker than we were the past couple of years that I did JLARC reporting.
Great.
So
And what do
I will
you
say-
attribute that to?
I would say it's our processes. When I got in, there were a few red flags that I noticed of things that we could improve and get things closed quicker, that we implemented right away. So I think just having those processes has helped us like stay on top of things. A lot of times what happens is you find something that's an issue with the request, and then we're like, oh, we need to extend this so we can fix this issue or these exemptions, or we need legal counsel. Right now, we're working ahead on requests, so we established that due date to allow time for any legal review or any kind of fixing that needs to happen before the due date due to the requester. So I think that cadence has actually helped us close requests a lot quicker. Our GovQA system has actually helped tremendously because we're not going into this system here to do this and then this system here to do that. It's one system that helps us redact, track, do all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of helped us, process those a lot
Great.
quicker.
It's okay to say me. Unlike if it's like, oh, it's me, when I came along.
No, it's just,
kidding.
yeah, I have been doing public records for over 20 years for several different agencies, right? So like local government, and they have their own way of doing things, and then the legislator, which is its own beast. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like taking that experience from all of those and knowing what works and what doesn't work, I think has helped this team a lot. So
Okay.
It's her, she won't say.
One final question, and this is for other board members who may know this, but in case they don't, I know that there's been a change in like the reporting or structure. So where does the records team sit organizationally within the LCB?
So you're asking like where are we like physically, like org chart?
Yeah, on the org
Okay.
chart. So I think you used to be in finance, as I recall, and there's been a change. And so just trying to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Yeah, so now we are under the director's office
Okay.
and directly under Tony Hood. So it's been great. I think it makes more sense when we're a part of conversations and meetings. The work that we do is more overarching for the whole
Mhm,
agency
makes-
and not finance related. So
Yeah.
to me, it's made sense, and I hope that we haven't, been too much of a problem to take on. But yeah, so I think it's been great,
Great.
personally. So do you guys agree? Yeah,
Makes a lot more sense.
makes a lot more sense. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I see Spencer smiling, so I think he thinks it makes sense too.
I was never here.
Okay,
It
okay.
happened right before he came on, I think.
Yeah, right before you came on. So
Bounced around between, we were at the director's office and then finance and then back to directors.
yeah. So
All right, thank you.
yeah. Okay, so I wanted to highlight some request subject matter / categories that are that people most often request, right? So you'll see here that, and we do track this through GovQA. It's something that I have customized myself through the administrative portal because I wanted to know those trends, and I knew that directors and stuff wanted to know, what are people requesting? Like, what is the most frequently requested subject? So anytime we receive a new request, we try to find the subject that fits best with that request. So oftentimes we get requests, and this is just the top 4. There's more than this, but this has been the top 4. Cannabis data is about 253 from that May 21st, to same time frame. Cannabis enforcement, so that's anybody that's requesting investigations, violations, all those kinds of records related to some kind of cannabis enforcement action. That's about 126. Cannabis licensing is the biggest, and as I was looking at those numbers, I think a lot of it, and you guys probably would not be surprised, it's attributed to social equity. It's a very hot topic. And so that any social equity requests that we receive where people are wanting to see the application for those or things like that, that's this category. And then liquor enforcement, about 143. And this is just, I'm not going to go through every single thing on here, but I really wanted to paint a picture of how many steps it can take to fulfill just one request. So this is kind of given just a broad request. And I will note that this is also kind of a one and done. This isn't, if you get to the end of this little flow chart, if it's an installment request where we're providing, here's 200 records, 100 records, or whatever it is, next installment's due, it basically goes back up to, and kind of goes through this cycle over and over until we've fulfilled that request completely. But I wanted to kind of paint a picture of what can happen. Multiple divisions can be, impacted by a request. And so we have to reach out. In this example, it's Division A needs to search, then Division B, Division C. They're all returned to the unit. We have to then review every single one of those records that we get for any kind of legal exemptions, things like that. Are there missing records? If there are, it goes back to, so kind of just, they can get really complicated. So oftentimes when people ask why a request is taking so long, I wish I could just be like, well, here, let me start with this, because it's not always that simple, right? So, and there are things that we try to do, I know as an agency as well. A lot of that is with records management and organization that might help this process be quicker. And we are getting there, so slowly but surely. But I like this workflow kind of as a picture so that you can see how many steps, really do go into processing public records requests. So the executive takeaway for just that section that I went over is that volume is important, but complexity is the larger challenge when it comes to public records requests. So, it's not as simple as, hey, kid, do you have a copy of this one record? Oftentimes the request is very broad. We do get ones where they're very contextual. So people are asking for, I want to know why this decision was made. All records related to why this decision was made. So if you can imagine trying to execute a search that could potentially get those records, and sometimes you're getting a lot of misfires because you're asking people to search for things with keywords and electronic, so you're doing the best that you can, but you really are having to review every single record to know if it's based on the decision and if it falls within the scope of what they're actually asking for. So they can be very complex. So all right, a little bit about program performance. So one of the things that I really try to get our team to focus on more and more, and I've done this since I came, is our commitment to customer service. So we always are going back to more customer interaction, status updates, really trying to provide those realistic timelines. Like I always tell my team, if you have to go in front of a judge and explain why you gave this timeline, are you going to be able to explain it? Does it make sense? So when we're coming up with our timelines, they're always thinking about those things, explaining to a requester what the search was. So we try to do this every single time, and definitely at the closure of a request, in that final letter, explaining to them, these are all the locations we searched, these are the keywords we use, these are the people we reached out to. We think it's fulfilled, it's good, so that they can see, and it's very transparent. And if they feel like something's missing or we've misinterpreted, they have an opportunity. They've been given all the information. So that's something newer that we've started doing. Also asking for that customer's feedback. So it's not just asking clarification, but it's maybe, we execute a search, we find records that we're like, well, maybe this is what they're looking for. Give it to them and then say, is this what you're looking for? That's something that we didn't do too often before, and we're really trying to get the customer more involved in that, so that they can have a say in whether that's what they were looking for, and kind of guide us into that. Some quality control things that we do is just we're always evaluating, obviously, our adherence to the Public Records Act. Any of our policies, if they need updating or if something's off, always staying on top of that. And also court decisions. That sways a lot of how an agency processes a public records request. So we do quality reviews. So we always have a second review on records prior to their release to the requester, making sure that exemptions are applied consistently, accurately, and that nothing got missed. This helps us, reduce our processing errors, and it just keeps consistent processes across the board. So when I reach out to the AAG for advice, on a particular exemption, they'll say, here's a low risk, here's a high risk, here's a middle road, and then you kind of just have to decide, but making sure that we're doing that for everybody and not just that one request. So quality control is huge for our team. We also really try to focus on our backlog management, always tracking our program's age of open requests, because once it's kind of like those traffic lights, right? It's like green, yellow, red. It's like, okay, if you're have this request open for this long, it kind of gets in that red, let's take a look at it. So the number of requests that are older than a year right now is 21. But I wanted to note that last year at the same time, it was 42.
Wow.
So we're trying, to wrap these up a lot quicker.
And it's complexity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just obviously.
Complexity and broadness, people are asking for so many records, so many. Any and all things related to this licensee, and it could be enforcement stuff, all of and depending on how long that business has been open, there could be thousands and thousands of pages that we're having to review, and we do review every single page. So it takes time. Also, timely responses, our ability to meet statutory requirements and provide prompt access to public records. So our percentage of requests closed within 5 business days is 55%. So we're closing a little more than half of the ones that we're receiving within 5 business days. So, and I think, I'm going to note that with adding Erica as our public records search specialist, she primarily executes our electronic searches. And she's just great at it. But also one thing that I've moved to her is when people are requesting like a list or data, and it's something that can just be click and pull it. We've been trying to give those to her so that she can close those in 5 business days instead of it going through the full queue and, Amber, who already has 100 she's working on, or Victoria, you know what I mean? So it's going to Erica, who doesn't have as big of a load as they do because she has another job primarily, but that has allowed us to have a quicker turnaround on those easier requests. So,
is that 55% a metric that is across all state agencies that we can measure ourselves against, or how do we do compared to other state agencies?
So the JLARC reporting actually has all the agencies, and this is one of the metrics they report.
Okay.
How many of your requests received during this time period, the reporting period, are you closing within 5 business days? So that is a metric that you can actually, I haven't looked at it recently. I am curious now as well to help me measure up. But yeah, that is something that's out there. Yeah. All right, so executive takeaway for that section. Our program's performance is measured through timeliness, workload management, compliance, quality, and customer service outcomes. So those are our main focuses. All right, let's go over some high-risk areas. So when agencies face litigation, some of the most common issues are the following. Number one is delayed responses. And oftentimes that is with no explanation, right? People can say, you're taking forever on my request, but they don't know what we're dealing with. They don't know how many requests we have open. They don't know how actually complicated their request is. Possibly they think it's just like a quick, why you should just be able to find this. But as long as we are documenting why it's taking us so long, or why we gave them the timeline that we did, that lowers our risk in litigation. And so, but that is one of the high risk areas that requesters always focus on. Why is it taking so long? So delayed response is something we're always trying to make sure we're managing. Yeah, go ahead.
So what does the RCW say about timelines?
So it's very vague, unfortunately. It says that we are required to give records in the most timeliest possible way. Okay. We're supposed to have the most timeliest action on requests. It's very vague, but the burden of proof is on the agency. Okay. So the courts just want to know that your timeline made sense and that you can prove it.
Hence your comment to your staff, can you defend this in front of a judge?
Yes, okay. Exactly. Inadequate searches is a huge one for litigation. So I don't know how much experience you all have or have seen public records litigation, but one of the main things that courts go to with agencies is show me your search. Prove it, tell me what you did. I need keywords, I need staff that have been involved, I need to see all of that. And if we can't prove as an agency that we did all the things, check, it's inadequate to a court, and that's when your penalties go up. So that is a high risk area. So that's why if we reach out to staff, we ask them to respond with, okay, where did you search? What keywords did you use? We do that as well. We note it in the GovQA system. We have proof of it. Erica, when she does email searches using our fancy little system that we have, she always copies and pastes search query and saves it so that it's there and it's ready to go in case someone wants to question it or sue us or whatever. We just have documentation that this is what we searched for. Another high risk area is improper redactions or withholding. So if you're just like, you know, ooh, redact, 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 and it's not making sense, or you're over redacting, oftentimes it's a very high risk area. So we do our second checks on all of the redactions that we do to make sure that they're proper and that they're not overly, that we're not doing it too much. Failure to preserve records is another high risk area that not a lot of people think about, but if we're deleting records when there's an open public records request and those records haven't been pulled, that can be a high risk for us. Lack of documentation demonstrating compliance. So it kind of goes back to everything I was saying. So all the things that we do when it comes to even just one single public records request and processing that from beginning to end, we document everything. Every step we took, every conversation we have. If we get on the phone with a requester to ask a question, we memorialize that into communication per our phone call on this date. This is what we talked about. Please let me know if that does not accurately reflect, so we're documenting everything. So
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I know there was recently an event internally around public records. It just got me curious about what is our training protocol across the agency so that all of the various areas within the LCB are aware and staff are really aware and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so new employee orientation is where it starts. So every single new employee receives a presentation and training on Public Records Act and what their duty is and what our duty is as an agency. So at that's when they do that. Yep. And then I also attend, trainings like this. This is actually a training that we can take out of our pocketbook if the courts ask, because that is another thing they do ask. They ask how often, if we're to be sued over something like this, they ask how often our staff are trained on public records. So documenting a meeting like this and saying who was involved just shows, more compliance and that we take it seriously. I do attend like regional enforcement. So I'm actually doing one in a couple weeks for the Eastern. I'm looking at Tony because I'm like, I just told Tony and I already forgot. But to speak with those folks again about public records, I did one for licensing not too long ago. And I try to tailor it, I do broadly speak about public records, but I do try to tailor it to their division.
Okay, well, so at a recent board staff meeting, it was brought up, public records, and so I haven't reached out yet, but it sounds like, yes, if I reach out to you, you'd be willing to come and talk to our team about, okay, great.
Absolutely.
And your public records fair was very well attended.
Yeah,
Sounds like it was.
and we do have a little highlight in there that Victoria will talk about, but yeah, that was our first year doing that, and that was really exciting.
Great.
Yeah, so risk reduction through our standardized processes. This is kind of a theme I keep talking about. Having standardized processes is so huge for an agency because you may do things that are interpreted, a little off, or the court makes a decision saying, you didn't really do that correctly. But if we're standardizing our processes and doing the same thing across the board, as an agency, it looks really good for us. So that includes our centralized request tracking and monitoring through GovQA. So we've implemented that in 2025. So that's another way that we're, trying to reduce some risk. Standardizing our search procedures. So we have the same procedures every time and we document those every time, and GovQA actually tracks any communication that we have with staff about a search. So it kind of all goes through the system and it's saved there. Having our consistent exemption review and redaction practices. Once we make a decision on how we're going to apply, a redaction based on a specific exemption, we do it the same way across the board until we hear otherwise, right? If the AG is like, well, maybe you should change it up, we'll change it up. But other than that, we standardize those processes. Our records retention and preservation controls, we're really amping up our records retention program here. Since I started, Missy's been wanting so badly to really get a hold of our records retention and preservation. We do have a lot more records than we need to be holding on to. So, and we've been doing a lot better, and we'll go over that a little bit in this next section, I think. Comprehensive documentation of agency actions. That's, I've talked about that as well. We document everything when it comes to processing a request. And again, with the ongoing training and oversight. So making sure that we are, it's not just the new employee orientation, but it's going around to meetings and, making sure that our training and oversight when it comes to public records is still, it's an ongoing thing and it's constant. So. All right, so executive takeaway for that section. Strong processes don't eliminate risk. Unfortunately, there's no way to get out of a public records litigation. It's one of those things that, an agency can easily get sued over. But they do significantly reduce the likelihood of litigation and improve the agency's ability to successfully defend its actions. So, and courts do look at, aggravating and mitigating factors when it comes to a public records lawsuit. And again, how often people are being trained, how compliant we are, how standardized our all those things they'll ask in litigation, and that can reduce our penalties when it comes to a lawsuit like this. All right, so I'm just going to highlight a couple of court decisions just because these were interesting. This was actually shared at our public records. It's the Washington Association for Public Records Officers. It's a mouthful. But they hold on conferences twice a year for all public records officers throughout the state. And that's kind of where we get updates from the AAG as well when it comes to any court decisions that were made. Even ones that are not decisions or that were unpublished opinions, it still kind of helps an agency see the things that courts are looking at, and it helps our processes. So a couple, this first one's actually a big one. It's called Cousins versus the State, and it was actually Department of Corrections. There were some, it was not clear when the request was actually closed. Apparently the letters or the way that the communication was stayed open, the requester was uncertain when the request was actually closed, because you have 2 years from the date a request is closed to file a lawsuit on public records on that request. And so at first they were like, nope, it's over the 2 years. And they were like, well, tell me when it was actually closed. It's unclear by the letter and all this kind of thing. So went through court in 2024, went all the way up to Washington Supreme Court, and the agency impact at the end. Basically, the courts were like, you do need to be super clear in your letters that this is the date that it's closed and it's official. And so the closure letters now, they clearly state that. Ours always have stated when the request is closed, but one thing that the courts added was to tell them you have 2 years. This is the date when you can seek judicial review from. And so we added that to all of our letters. So that just goes to show again how court decisions can affect the way that we process and handle. So now I had to go through all of our letter templates and add this language at the end of every single one of them, just so that we can make sure that we're being very clear. And then another more recent one, this one just was in the Court of Appeals. And so this was Undivided Media versus the City of Seattle. And just in a nutshell, they requested communications just for a 10-hour time period. It's very short. The city produced a first installment, and then they later produced a second installment. The timeline between those two was questionable to this Undivided Media. So they sued, and they found out that, yes, the agency gathered the records, but for whatever reason didn't produce them until that later date. And they didn't have very good reasons why. Or they did have reasons, but the court didn't feel like they were good enough reasons. I guess I should say that. One of the things they said was that they were short by one staff person. And also the main person who was processing the request was on extended leave. And then one of the things that the supervisor for this public records person said, and it's actually in their statement, was that providing backup coverage for PRA requests was not of the highest priority. Oops. So they literally said, the court was like, okay.
Selena would never say that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah. So the impact was, delays occurring after identifying responsive records already. They couldn't really explain why they weren't able to produce those. Timelines and prioritizing the Public Records Act remains a significant risk area. So just a reminder that, yes, your timelines will be under scrutiny, and even how you prioritize your public records at your agency will be under scrutiny as well. So, all right, passing on, give my voice a little break.
So now we're going to talk about projects that our team is working on. All right, so to start off, we have on our SharePoint, on our intranet SharePoint, a public records wiki. It's our centralized knowledge hub that provides all of us staff with a single source of truth for public records guidance, procedures, templates, trainings, materials, and legal resources. And this is something that Amber Anderson started, and she created it. And I think a few of us add a little bits and pieces to it every now and again. But this is a quick little snapshot of that. It's where we keep our public records calendar, which is where we all keep track of all of our due dates when something's coming up soon, and it's color coded and everything, which is really nice. This is where we could easily see the exemption key, any updates, any legal updates of any new exemptions that need to be applied, any changes to exemptions. Anytime Samina has to go and talk to the AG about these very specific things that are very complex with financials, anything like that. And if we forget, oh, is that redacted or is it not? We come here and then we see, okay, yeah. Also, if we're all confused about where to go for any specific social equity things, because there was a round 1 of social equity and a round 2 of social equity, as soon as we find out and we clarify that for ourselves on where to locate it, we come to our central hub here and we try and get that. So this is where we go for any of our contact information, any updates, anything that we need. This is our centralized hub for everything.
Go Amber.
Yes.
Yes. So for our records management efforts, Missy tries to schedule meetings with some of the new employees after the initial NEO meeting to see if they need any additional training, anything else that they need, make sure that for the very specific division that they're in, that they are understanding like records from creation to destruction. Any record you do create is a public record. And no, it is not a person's record. So sometimes after NEO training, we do like to remind everybody after that, because NEO is very long. So.
It's very long, yeah. And so she'll follow up with them, it's usually in a couple weeks after that initial training. And she'll also get them set up on their email retention labels and kind of sit down and help them with that so that they can kind of keep a grip on their email, because we know we get a lot of emails here.
And then she'll also have quarterly meetings with the division's records coordinators. So each division has a records coordinator to help with the destruction or archival of the retention processes with any of those records within that division. So there is a division coordinator expert that we all go to. We also have our RIM fair, our Records and Information Management Fair, which we had for the first time this year. And since it was successful, we got so many good remarks on it. Hopefully next year we'll be able to make it a little bit bigger and have a little bit more information that we can provide out to people. And we might also extend it out to any other agency if they want to come and join our public records fair as well. We're also wanting to train additional PRA staff on records destruction processes. Right now, our net is going through the process of the records retention, destruction, or archival process, because it's not just as simple as deleting a record. We have a whole process of reviewing that record and a whole process of documenting that and whether or not it does get destroyed, because there's a certain amount of time. So we do have destruction logs that need to be filled out. And this isn't like transitory. So transitory, hi, how are you? That could be deleted. Anything that's not a very specific business need is a transitory record. So something with a very specific business need has a very specific retention time and a very specific schedule. Depending on it, it can be destroyed after a certain amount of years, or it might have to go down to the archival office. And in which case we have the destruction logs to determine whether or not that was a destroyed record, or if someone is requesting it, we can either get that from the archival office or they can go to and resubmit that to the archival office.
And to note also, destruction logs stay with the agency forever, for the lifetime of the agency. So
from May 2025 to current, we have reviewed 37 destruction logs and they've been approved. So That's
And those-
within a year.
Yes, and those destruction logs could be 1 page, or it could be like, oh my gosh, I think Tia from the finance gave us hundreds of pages of just old 2013 records. And, you know, Missy has to go through, she does her initial review to make sure they're good to go. Then I go through my process and sign off on them. So it's 37 destruction logs. We're hoping that number will increase. Like I said, we're kind of getting a grip on records management a little bit more, but that could be several pages of the destruction logs. So
And then also to go with the 37 destruction logs, 78,930 files have been properly destroyed within this year. So why is all of this important? Well, as a public agency and the LCB's mission statement that we are dedicated to promoting public health and public safety and trust with the administration in providing good enforcement for liquor, cannabis, and tobacco and vapor for the entire state. And in doing that, getting that trust from the public is being transparent. We need to be transparent with everybody. And so unable to stay in line with that, our team is like pretty much the headline of that transparency. And we're trying to make sure that we're providing those records and we're providing enough information that isn't exempt, essentially, and making sure that we are also managing those records. Because if we have too many to go through, then we can't stick with the good timeline. If there's 50,000 emails from 2007 that we still have to go through, then it makes it a little hard. So that's why we're trying to dwindle down those numbers, make sure that everyone knows that we can delete certain emails after a certain time and that there is a retention schedule that we need to stick to. That way we're not going over some meetings. It promotes the accountability of our team. It also helps with the timelines for our team and being able to get things to the public in a timely manner. Because a lot of people request records from us for their own court cases. And if we're unable to provide that to them in that amount of time, then it does cause problems and it doesn't allow the community to support us. This also supports the audits and investigations and demonstrates stewardship. Executive takeaways, projects our team works on help us stay way ahead of growing workloads, legal requirements, and operational risks. Rather than just reacting to requests, these projects have improved our ability to improve the systems, processes, and tools needed to manage records efficiently. So, it's very executive priorities. Executive priorities, we prioritize public records searches and compliance, ensure staff responsiveness, promote records management best practices, support retention compliance, and help us escalate high-risk requests early, encourage transparency and accountability. And this is our team. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. All right, I see Board Member Garrett has a question. Board Member Garrett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and thank you all. That was great information. My first question is, if there's a public records request on a licensee, are they notified of that, the licensee?
So they're not automatically notified. No. There's nothing in the Public Records Act that requires us to notify. There is a specific statute that's for third-party notice, that where agencies can, if they choose, provide a third-party notice to someone who is subject of the records, right? But it's usually only used if we believe, if we've already looked over exemptions, there's nothing there that applies, but we believe maybe another exemption might apply that we're not seeing or that we don't know about. And so we're giving that third party an opportunity to review those records and determine whether they want to seek court protection for those records. So that's the only time that we would really notify someone.
So
Whether
if so the licensee, and when I say license, one of our licensees, if someone is requesting their records, public records requests, they are not aware of that.
No.
We would be sending those notifications 24 hours a day because we have, I mean, several coming in per day. You know, I want this person's entire licensing application, or, you know, this person's licensees, you know, entire enforcement file. That's the majority of our requests every single day.
I think we have a request open where somebody's wanting the licensing application record for all cannabis.
Yeah,
Mhm.
every single cannabis application.
So then we'd have to reach out to every single licensee and let them.
We wouldn't have time to do requests.
No, I just know that I know when they do that over with OMWBE, that there's a standard letter that automatically goes to the certified business to let them know this is being requested. And my next question is, are they able to get all of the financials and everything on that licensee? Or
So
are there things that is being redacted?
Yes. So there are specific exemptions that apply to financial information that an applicant submits with their applications for a liquor or cannabis license. That was a lot of words I just said. And so, yeah, it includes, you know, obviously your standard like account numbers and things like that, but even there's a specific line in there, and you all might have to help me because you're the ones who deal with this the most, but it's for source of income, like source of funds, right?
Yeah.
So where
Funds is-
they're getting their money from for this business is it's very specific in that exemption. So anything, yes, that's standard, social security numbers, driver's license, those kinds of things, and then amounts. So people will provide their bank statements as a part of their application. We redact all, you know, the amounts because the exemption allows us to do that. People don't need to see, you know, that they spent $50 at Jack in the Box. So there's an exemption in there for those amounts, as well as the source of funds. What else am I missing as far as financials?
Account numbers, routing numbers.
Yes, account numbers, routing numbers.
We don't redact purchase prices, as that was something that we went rounds on for years, trying to determine whether or not a purchase price is redacted or not. We
For a
did it
business.
for a business,
Yeah.
yeah, for a license.
Talked about. with
So
the
that
age.
was something that we had redacted in the past, but it is something that is requested often for like, how much was this license sold for? How much was this license assumed for? So we don't redact that anymore because we went and talked to the AG, well, Smina went and talked to the AG a
get
lot,
clarity.
and extra clarity.
Yeah, and the thing about exemptions that you have to remember is that it is taken exactly how it's written. So you can't go beyond, you can't like assume or like go, well, what about? So one example I like to give is there's an exemption that says that a public employee, if they make, you know, if there's a complaint or an investigation done on a public employee, their I think it's the witness name and some other stuff, and it's very specific. It's like name and this is exempt, but it doesn't say this is one where it didn't say identifying information. So you can't just go on and start redacting other stuff that might identify them because that specific exemption doesn't say so. Now, if someone wanted to go and talk to the legislator and change it, so be it. But as it stands now, you literally redact exactly what the exemption tells you to. You don't go beyond that. And that's where, you know, one of those high risk areas that I mentioned that if you're over redacting stuff, courts are like, nah. So, yeah.
Do we ever get requests where people are seeking information about people who's seeking information about them?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of the times we get licensees wanting to know who launched a complaint against their business. And complainant name and identifying information, actually, if they choose anonymity when they make the complaint, that's redacted. So we will often get people saying, can I get, someone made a complaint against me on this date? And instead of going in through and redacting, again, this is another customer service thing that we try to do with requesters. We might pull up that complaint and be like, well, they're not gonna know who it is because we're redacting all of it. They're anonymous. So let's just reach out and say, hey, do you still want the records? Even though we're redacting everything and you're not gonna get what you want. And sometimes they'll say, oh, well, no, then it's pointless. And sometimes they still want it.
Okay.
But yeah, so they definitely, that is one of the ones that stick out is,
And someone could do like, I'm doing a public record request for everyone who's done a public record request about me,
yes.
you know, and
Okay.
if it was not anonymous, they would with all that information.
Okay, great.
So yeah, there's very meta type of
Mhm.
things going on.
Yeah.
Okay, Board Member Garrett, I think you had a follow-up question, and then Board Member Holmes, I see your hand. So Board Member Garrett?
No, I'm gonna hold my question for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Board Member Holmes?
Just a couple. Do we ever receive any government requests from other government agencies at any level,
Yes, we do. Yeah.
such as?
Department of Agriculture, they'll sometimes request lists and data for their own. So they do air control and a few other things like that. So they request our data and they request some of our information.
A lot of city.
Yeah,
a lot of city agencies.
About the locations of businesses.
Any federal requesters?
No.
No, but we have had
Okay.
requesters out
So-
of the state.
Yeah,
So-
we haven't had, not since I've been here, we haven't had federal.
Okay. On another front, before things go to litigation, is there any kind of agency appeal process? Your team has made a final decision and is sending a closure letter. Does a requester have any option to go, for instance, to the deputy director or the director to get that reconsidered before, in an effort to avoid litigation?
Yes, that's a great question. They do, and the AAG actually oftentimes, because they can go to the AAG just to get their, opinion on how maybe we applied redactions or whatever, and they'll often come to us saying, did they seek an internal review first? Did they go through your internal review process? And there is a specific statute regarding internal review processes for agencies, and we also have it in our policy. We've had a couple where people, question attorney-client privilege redactions actually, and it went through our internal review process. They show us specifically which redactions they're questioning. We sent it on, up the chain, and then Will and maybe with the AAGs looked at it again, and then we had a final response. After that internal review process, then yeah, they can kind of go on beyond that if they would like to.
Okay, and then last question, you talked about litigation. Do we have any pending cases or recent cases that are against the agency?
We do not. We just have threats right now.
You what? I'm sorry?
We just have threats right now.
Oh, right.
Threatening
Sure,
litigation,
sure.
but no, we don't have any
Sure.
open ones and no recent ones either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Good
Terrific.
job. And thanks for this presentation.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Board Member Garrett, anything else before I close out this section of the agenda? All right, thank you. All right, Samina, Victoria, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. It was excellent. Really appreciate it. Feels like we're in really good hands. And for the rest of the team, I really and just sincerely appreciate you taking the time to be here in person for this presentation and being a part of the team. We as board members don't get face-to-face time with employees a lot of time, and it's always nice to put faces to names and to be able to thank you personally. So thank you. And Samina, thank you for encouraging or whatever you did to get people at this table. Sometimes that's not easy. Exactly.
They're great. You guys
yeah.
are all great.
Thanks
Yes,
for
you
having
deserve
us.
it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We will now transition to our final agenda item, which is just roundtable and any other board inquiries. So I will just open it up for any roundtable agenda items or updates from the team.
Sure. Well, I'll jump in real quick. So as all of you are aware, the agency continues to be queried about the rescheduling. And as such, myself, staff continue to meet with the AG's office, the governor's office, other state partners, state agencies attached to the Cannabis Regulators Association, which is CANRA, the National Governors Association. In fact, I met with CANRA staff and state representatives on Monday and discussed rescheduling. There hasn't been any changes to where we are right now. We've been asked on several occasions, is the agency, the board, going to provide some information? We're in the final process of getting a document out. We envision that it'll probably come out early next week. That provides, unfortunately, the limited guidance that we have regarding the federal rescheduling.
All right, thank you. Just real quick from my perspective, I really appreciate, I know all the work that everybody's doing and who people are meeting with, and appreciate all the work that's going on. It's complex and there's lots of moving parts, and really appreciate it. All right, any other questions or comments? All right.
Becky.
Oh, yes, I see Rebecca Smith.
So good afternoon. So I did want to give a comment, and because tomorrow is the kickoff of the FIFA World Cup. I think it's important to mention because of all the work that staff have done to get ready. They certainly have done a lot of education and training to our cities and jurisdictions. We've also recently done some training for our enforcement staff just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. It was great that Larry had reached out and asked us to come and provide some information. Again, they had everything they needed. We just were there for some Q&A. We have about, that when it comes to outdoor areas, extended outdoor areas, we have, expanded outdoor alcohol service areas. We have 11 cities that have been approved, and we have 5 fan zones. That fan zones is interesting because we have folks that are official fan zones but have decided not to apply for a fan zone, but they are still having activities in their cities and jurisdictions. We haven't had anybody yet apply for this civic campus authorization, but we do know that Bumbershoot is interested in doing that. That the fan zones don't last as long as the other expanded outdoor alcohol service will last until next year of June of 2027. So I don't foresee there being a decrease in that expanded service. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that with all of the board members and see if you had any questions.
Thank you very much. I'll just say that as a person who lives in the city of Seattle, you can definitely tell the World Cup is on its way, including the Space Needle being painted as a soccer ball. And I flew into SeaTac Airport yesterday, and I think everything is branded World Cup. So it's actually very exciting. I appreciate all the work that's had to go into the preparation for this that's been going on for a number of years, actually, and it's hard to believe here we are. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Questions or comments for Becky? All right, seeing none.
Just want to echo what a great job everyone's done in the coordination. Everyone's very excited.
Yes, they are. All right, any other updates from anyone else around the table today? I'm going to ask for a quick budget update, and I'm only going to ask that because I saw in the paper some comments by the governor about the upcoming legislative session, budget session, et cetera, and just wondering if there's anything we can say that just helps remind people of the budget challenges that the state currently faces and how that might impact the LCB. We've been under a hiring freeze, we've been under a travel ban, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not easy as a state agency to continue to operate and have all these restrictions and still provide good customer service and stay on top of everything. So I'm curious about what messaging we're hearing right now from the governor and the governor's office, if anything, other than what you've also seen in the paper.
Other than what Will and I have sent out to the agency, next to nothing, to be honest.
Okay. Can you just share a little bit about what you sent out? I've seen it, but just.
Sure. really high level. I mean, we continue, like you said, I mean, we've got the travel restrictions, we've got the hiring restrictions, we've got the procurement restrictions. The governor is very concerned and really wants to make sure that customer service is the top priority. And so all the agencies have shifted their focus that direction. And so internally, Spencer and I spend a lot of time thinking about how we can make the agency's budget sustainable over the long term while continuing to offer the great customer service that we do.
Okay. Well, I just for one want to thank you, Will. I know one of the things that when you were hired, I think I said to you something along the lines of, I'm looking for an inside person, a person who wants to manage the internal and not so much the external. And it takes a lot of work to manage during a budget challenging time versus when we're more, have less budget constraints. And you've done a really good job at that. And I know it's been tough for the team at times because we want to look out for our employees. We want to offer certain things. And in different times, we might have more flexibility around those things. And all of us who have people who report to us have to make decisions around requests that are not always fun or popular, but I deeply appreciate the seriousness in which you take your role and responsibility. Because I know at the end of the day, if anybody in the governor's office is going to come knocking on our door because they're concerned about something we've done, it's going to be me and it's going to be you who are going to be at the table. So I really appreciate it. So thank you. And thank you for that update. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board or any board announcements? All right. Well, seeing none, I'm looking around the table. I think anything, Gretchen or Deb, nothing? All right. Well, that concludes the executive management team meeting for June 10th, and thanks everyone for your participation. Bye, everyone.